You're listening to Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick in association with Wexford Insurances. Challenge us at Wexford Insurances 0818 31 30 30.
I'm joined now in studio by Brendan Crowley of Wexford Bus. Good morning, Brendan. You might start by telling me a bit about your own background, please.
I'm a born and reared Wexford man, born and reared in Fisher's Row, actually not far from here. Grew up in Wexford, went to school in CBS in Wexford. After that I went to WIT and did a couple of courses down there in quality assurance and supervisory management. Meanwhile I had started working in a company in Wexford, one of the local companies in quality assurance in a plant in Wexford where we used to make optical lenses. After that I went on and did a business degree in UCD in Dublin, and I have since then I've worked for the ambulance service for 21 years.
Back in 1996, I know you had an idea to start Wexford Bus. Where did that come from?
Went on holidays. I was on holidays down in Kerry, and I was just looking at the amount of tour coaches going around Karl, and I was just thinking, look, you know, these buses are pretty well subscribed, and you know, it's I just thought there were so many interesting places in Wexford that people needed to get around to, but there was no such service, and I just thought maybe if we bought a bus and put it on the road in Wexford, maybe we'd get a similar kind of business going.
And how did that go for you?
In a nutshell, it didn't really, you know. I suppose we were probably a little bit under-resourced and probably a little bit naive to come into the business at the time, and it didn't work really well. We tried it out for one summer and it didn't go very well at all.
So what did you do next?
We had to diversify very quickly because at the end of the day we had a nice coach sitting there and I had to find work for it. So I looked at for alternative business ideas, and I looked at the idea of putting the bus to work as a public bus service. So the first service, we applied for a licence to operate buses to WIT in Waterford for students who could commute daily from Wexford to Waterford. And we got that service up and running using the bus, and then we applied for several other licences for local buses to Rosslare and Kilmore, Castlebridge, and this continued to grow, where eventually we actually applied for a licence to operate local buses in Wexford town as well. So those buses started off as Viking shuttle bus. Some people might know it as that still, but those buses worked away running services to and from Wexford to local villages and up and down to Waterford for many years. They're still on the road, thank God.
What was the next stage of development for the business after that?
Shortly after we started local buses there, not long into the life of Wexford, or shuttle bus, an opportunity presented itself that I thought couldn't go, that we couldn't miss up on. Wexford Bridge was going to be taken down and rebuilt over a period of 10 to 12 weeks, and a tender came out to operate bus services for people living on the east side of the river to get them in and out of Wexford every day for the duration of the work. So we put a tender in for it, and we were successful in that bid, and we provided that service to the people for the duration of the bridge being closed. And obviously that contract was very good to us. It allowed us to expand our fleet and to build up and strengthen the service even more and put on a couple of more services. And
Brendan, at the time, was there any other public service routes in Wexford?
Well, there were some buses that operated maybe once a week on certain rural routes. There was no local bus service around Wexford town. So we looked at the services. We set up the local bus in town, but we also looked at the routes where there was a service one day a week. And to be honest with you, we just thought that if they could operate it, that we could operate them on a much more frequent basis. So we set out to operate those services on 6 days a week. And they still operate 6 days a week today.
And did you receive any state support over the first few years in trying to develop the business?
No, the kind of business we're in didn't really qualify. It doesn't really qualify for many of the grants that are out there. A lot of the grants that are out there were there for manufacturing or for agricultural related and rural development kind of things, but the bus services didn't qualify for this kind of thing. The only supports we did get, we got some supports in relation to training grants from the County Enterprise Board in the last few years, which were very useful to us.
One question I've often wondered is, let's say for instance with your own bus service, with OAPs, are they charged to use your service?
No, passengers who have free travel passes can use them on our buses. The system that applies there is that when a new route is set out, one of the conditions on a licence from the Department of Transport is that you must apply to become part of the free travel scheme. How that works then is that when somebody presents their free travel pass, we must record their name and the client number from the card and the details of the journey. And at the end of the month, we invoice the Department of Social Welfare for the fares. and then they return 70% of the fare to us. Once the service is running for a while, then the department send officials down who actually travel on the buses and carry out an audit, and to verify that the figures are, pretty okay. And what they'll do then is they'll make you an offer of an average figure for a period of a year, and then tie you into a 3-year contract on that. So you get a subvention, or if you like, a payment from social welfare for each route each month. But at this stage, generally you find that what happens is, as the route grows, the amount of money you get for that route is probably not compensating you for the service at all. But it's just something that we feel we should provide anyway. And
what were the big challenges that you had to overcome in the first few years of setting up the business?
Like when we started off, there were a number of problems that we encountered. I suppose the biggest one at the start was just making people aware of the bus service and trying to get people to change habits, trying to get people to consider using a bus service as opposed to using their own cars. And then one of the problems that we had there is that the bus service had to be reliable. And I suppose one of the big problems that we encountered in the first few years was that traffic in Wexford town was very, very congested. So the buses were somewhat unreliable. In particular, the town services were unreliable. So it was a hard sell to get people to use them when they didn't know if the bus was going to be on time or not. In fairness to Wexford Borough Council, they did a good bit of work on traffic management, and I suppose people might remember when they came along with the one-way systems, and there was a lot of uproar about them at the time, but in fairness they seem to have worked, and traffic moves much better now, so that the buses flow much better. Just going back to the I mentioned about trying to get people to change their habits. If you think about it, in a city, people are used to public transport, and it's almost they don't think just to use the bus or a tube or whatever, but to get people in Wexford to consider using the bus, there was a bit of work involved. Also, awareness was a big issue, just making people aware of our service, because you need a significant budget significant marketing budget to make people aware. Fortunately, we were able to use the local media a lot. We got help from the local papers and from South East Radio. People were generous enough to us with time and that.
So, Brendan, what was the next stage of development for Wexford Bus after that?
Well, in 2004, we decided that we'd branch out and try and move into long distance work. We were very interested in the airport. We had seen airport services work in other jurisdictions or other areas, and we applied for a license to the Department of Transport to operate airport services, direct airport services. That license was finally granted to us in 2007. So in June 2007, we launched our first bus on the Wexford Dublin Airport Express route. We started off with one bus in June, and we ran that bus 4 times a day, which was fairly tight from leaving Wexford to get to the airport to get back and up and down. But we managed, and thankfully within a month we were actually on our way back to the bank to look for money for a second vehicle, because the business had taken off pretty quickly, and it's just continued to grow from there.
That route certainly took off very fast, Brendan. Was it all plain sailing from there?
Well, no, we were, as I say, we started off in June and things looked really positive, and within a few weeks we got a terrible shock when we discovered that the Department of Transport had actually granted a license to a semi-state company to operate 20 services per day on our route. Well, I won't say our route, but the same route, so we were obviously very, very concerned about that. Heretofore, it had always been common practice for the department to not to grant a license where another license existed, and in particular when a service only started, to allow that service time to develop, and then if there was need for a second license, then they would grant it. So obviously we were very concerned about this, and we took our concerns to the department, and we met the head of bus reform at the Department of Transport. So we had a little bit of a to-ing and fro-ing with them, until eventually they did say to us that they probably had made a slight mistake here, and then they asked us would we be interested in considering operating full service, which meant that we would operate services to and from Dublin City as well. And when I say full services, what I mean is that when we were actually granted our license to operate between Wexford and Dublin Airport, our license was very restricted in that we could only pick up passengers who were heading to Dublin Airport. And on southbound journeys, we could only pick up passengers at Dublin Airport and drop them off along the route, where our competing service could actually pick up people and bring them to stages along the route. It could pick up people, bring them to Dublin City, to Dublin Airport, or vice versa. So we felt that this was very unfair, that there was 3 markets there and we were actually restricted to one, And while we certainly didn't have any support from our financial resources from the state to support our business, we felt we were going to be pushed out. But at the time, as I say, the department asked us, did we want to consider operating full service, that we would also serve the city. And we had a good and long, hard think about it, and we decided that, look, it's a big opportunity and something that we might regret if we passed up the opportunity. If the department had changed the rules and were going to allow a second competitor in there, if we didn't take that opportunity, obviously somebody else would. So we decided it was the best thing to do at the time. And thankfully that has paid off for us to date.
I have heard rumours in recent months that there may be a high-speed train running from Wexford to Dublin. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think that's a likely, in the present economic climate, I don't think that's likely to happen. I mean, the cost of providing such infrastructure, it just couldn't be justified. I mean, the amount of people who reside in County Wexford, you wouldn't have the volume of traffic on the route to pay for that. And I mean, the physical layout and the fact that the current railway line shares the dark lines, it just wouldn't work. I don't think you could justify spending the money.
Brendan, you mentioned earlier that the Dublin airport market grew almost instantaneously for you. Did you experience the same type of growth in the Dublin city market when you moved in there?
To be honest with you, Karl, we didn't. And that was partly because we obviously were concentrating on Dublin airport because it was where the route started off, and it was our primary focus. But in early 2010, you may remember there was the ash cloud occurred, and that really brought it home to us that we probably weren't making as much progress in Dublin City as we needed to, because the airport closed for over a week, which meant we had zero traffic to and from Dublin Airport, other than the odd number of passengers who might have been stranded or might have gone up to collect cars and things like that. But we realised that the numbers that we were getting out of Dublin City weren't doing the business for us. So at that point we realised we'd have to redouble our efforts in relation to the city. As that happened in April, and the numbers fell off. Obviously the airport closed for over a week, which is a significant number of passengers lost. But even after that, I think people were a bit nervous about flying, and the numbers at the airport took a while to recover. So we decided that we would concentrate on the Dublin city market, and particularly that we would actually aim for the September, when the students came back and people were actually going back to work after the summer holidays, that we would try to gain some market share at that time. And so from there, actually, it has actually worked very well for us. And I suppose that business has grown for us, we've seen a 20% year-on-year growth in that market.
I know that one of your major costs in your business must be insurance, and it being a public service that you're providing, I'm sure that it's certainly a limited market in terms of where you can go from an insurance perspective. What has been your experience in that to date?
Yeah, insurance is certainly one of our major expenses, and it's something we have to be extremely careful about. In fairness, we have had to ensure that all of our drivers are trained to the highest standard, and that we adhere to everything from the point of view of health and safety to ensure and to make sure and manage risk out of the business. At the end of the day, we have to have insurance and we have to pay it. And as you've correctly said, there's limited places we can go to get insurance, so it's certainly a concern every year. Yeah, one of the things we found with our insurance companies is at the end of the day, all we ever got was a letter telling us what our insurance was going to be next year. We never actually met while we met the brokers, we never really met the insurance companies face to face to actually sit down and have a little bit of a haggle about what we were going to pay them or what charges we'd have to pay. So we did last year. We actually sat down. We met people from the insurance companies. We sat down. We looked at the business, gave them they got a better understanding of our business. And I think, to be honest with you, one of the key things for them is they got to know us and know how we operated. We put a risk management plan together. We put a safety awareness programs together, as I said already. And so, in fairness, I found that they were willing to work with us, so I think it's one of the things that, it's one of the things that going forward we're probably able to control a little bit more by actually sitting down and developing a relationship with our insurers, so that we're not going to get a surprise next year. One
area you're not able to control, that's fuel. How concerned are you about the increase in fuel costs over the coming years?
Well, fuel has, since we started, when we started off, we were buying fuel for 76 cents a litre. When I say when we started off, I'm talking back in when we started off the Dublin airport service and Dublin city service. Now we're paying anything up to 145, 150 a litre. As everybody sees on the pumps, it's gone up. But one of the significant things that happened to us there in 2009 is licensed bus services were actually entitled to claim back the excise duty on fuel, which meant we got 32 cents a litre back, which was significant. At the time, it represented around 30% of the price of our fuel we could reclaim, as long as we proved that we were operating a licensed service and that the fuel was used in the provision of that service. In one of the budgets, the government took that away, so it meant that overnight we had a 30% increase in our cost of fuel. Now, bearing in mind, we burn in excess of 10,000 litres of fuel a week. That's a significant increase that we didn't expect, and it's a lot of people that you need to find to make up that cost.
How important is innovation within your own business, Brendan?
Look, we believe like the one way you stay ahead in this kind of business is to be innovative. So we're always looking ahead at what's the next new thing, what's the next best offering we can give our customers. So in recent, over the last couple of years, over the last year, we've been operating a Text Me My Bus offering where, people will actually get an automatic text telling them when the bus is near their bus stop. This actually came about through collaboration. One of our regular passengers who uses the buses every day to go to work, a lecturer from UCD in the computer science lab in UCD, actually asked us would we be interested in doing a little bit of collaborative work. He came along with the Text Me My Bus program, which was excellent, and this has since developed into an app. So now our passengers can actually, passengers with smartphones or iPads or whatever, can actually go in and see the live position of our bus. So if you can come to your favourite bus stop and it'll tell you when the bus is going to be there. So, we're happy to embrace all of this technology. Also, regular passengers on our buses will note that all of the buses have been fitted with new ticket machinery in recent months, and that is part of the integrated ticketing system which the National Transportation Authority is trying to roll out, or in the process of rolling out, and Wexford Bus has been chosen as one of the pilot companies to test the equipment. So we've been working on an ongoing basis now for the last few months, testing the equipment for the National Transportation Authority and the company who are developing the software. And hopefully within the next couple of months we'll be able to start accepting Leap cards on our buses. That's the smart card, is the title of the card, or the name of the card, the brand is Leap card.
And what are the benefits of these Leap cards for consumers?
Well, a Leap card it's an electronic ticket. In other words, it's like your BankLink card or whatever. There's a memory chip in the card, so you'll be able to pay automatically when you get on the bus. The system will automatically deduct a fare from your card. You'll be able to top up your card on the internet. You'll be able to top up your card on the bus if you wish. But the card will store products, for instance, passengers with annual tickets or multi-journey tickets. They will just swipe their card as they pass onto the bus, and the bus will, the machine will automatically deduct the fare. So it speeds up the process of loading buses, and apart from that, like, people will enjoy, favourable fares. There will be cheaper fares for using Leap cards. But another, I suppose, the most important part of the integrated ticketing is that it will allow people to move between services. In other words, somebody might get Wexford Bus to Dublin, hop on a Dublin bus, hop on a Lewis, but the same ticket will do them for every mode of transport. So effectively, it's bringing about seamless interchange between transport modes.
I have heard rumours as well that fare capping is being brought in from next year. Tell me more about this.
Well, the idea of fare capping will come with the Leap card, and the idea is that any person who uses a Leap card will have a maximum. There'll be a cap on how much money can be deducted from their card in any one day. So if people use a lot of services, have to use buses or trains or whatever a lot, they will only pay. They know before the day starts how much will be deducted from their card, and no matter how much they use it over that, they won't pay any more. So it's a good benefit to frequent travellers.
You've succeeded in building Wexford Bus to a staff of 28 and a fleet of 12. What does the next leg of this journey look like? Well,
we've a number of new things coming along in the very near future, please God. I suppose just one of the things that's very important to us is that we mustn't forget where we came from, that we started off as a local bus service just around the town and around Wexford town and environs, and we hope in the near future to try and bring on a much more enhanced service there. But apart from that, outside that, in the bigger picture, we've been granted permission to expand into other geographical areas and other counties outside of Wexford, so we'd hope to actually increase the number of services and destinations that we operate to and from. And obviously we'd hope that will bring about a resultant increase in fleet and the number of employees. We'd hope that maybe this time next year, the year after, we'll be talking about a staff of 40 instead of 28. So please God, if it keeps going the way things are going, and we get the continued support of a very loyal customer base that we have, perhaps we'll all achieve that together.
Well, Brendan, it's certainly been a very insightful interview. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for dropping by this morning and wish you continued success with Wexford Bus.
Welcome back to South East Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick in association with Wexford Insurances, #1 for business insurance in County Wexford.